It began with an instinctual sense. It seems to have a way of doing that, doesn't it? An almost undetectable change in her tone, a peculiar gentleness in her voice when she mentioned, "I'll be out for lunch with a friend." The type of gentleness that reveals itself only after experiencing the harshness of life, the very edges you believed you had softened through years of commitment. Laura and I celebrated 8 years of marriage. 8 years of morning coffees, shared dreams, and the unspoken bond that arises from truly knowing another person. I believed we had a strong foundation. Of course, we had our differences, but isn't that part of the journey? I attributed it to the inevitable wear and tear that comes with living. That moment came before I caught a glimpse of the late-night message that appeared on her phone, which lay casually on the couch next to me. Today keeps replaying in my mind. I received a message from an unfamiliar number. When I inquired about it, she dismissed it with a jittery chuckle. "It's just a casual group chat. You're aware of how girls can be." I acknowledged but chose not to delve deeper. That evening, as I lay in bed next to her, gazing at the ceiling, an unsettling feeling washed over me. There was an unmistakable sense of something being deeply amiss. Weeks passed, and as her lunch dates grew more frequent and her excuses increasingly vague, I knew it was time to take action. I must admit, I felt a twinge of guilt as I found myself going through her phone when she left it unattended one afternoon. The writings I came across lacked any suggestive elements. They were clear and direct. Her companion was a person named Eric, and from their interactions, it was clear that their lunch meetings involved much more than just a hasty meal and casual conversation. A surge of nausea and anger washed over me, quickly followed by an overwhelming tide of humiliation. My wife, Laura, was involved in an affair. It was more than a mere fling. These conveyed something deeper than simple physical attraction. They exuded a profound sense of emotional closeness, the type of bond we once shared, the kind I believed was still ours. For a week, I held the knowledge within me, pondering my next steps in quiet contemplation. Face her, gather my belongings, and depart. Urge her to clarify. I refrained from engaging in any of those activities. Instead, I embarked on an unprecedented journey. I devised a plan. With precision and intent, I crafted my plans. The journey began with exploration. After exploring a few social media avenues, I found out that Eric was a coworker of hers, serving as a sales representative for a company she had partnered with on a project. He was also married. I came across his wife, Christine, on Facebook. She's a petite brunette with gentle eyes and 2 little ones under 5. My heart shattered for her. Yet my compassion did not hold me back from progressing. The plan unfolded more swiftly than I anticipated. Initially, I brought on a private investigator, a rugged fellow named Frank with a bulldog-like visage and a straightforward demeanor. Frank's photos validated every detail. Images capture their departure from a hotel, arms nearly touching, expressions bright with joy. He had even managed to snap a photo of them sharing a kiss in her car. Evidence, solid, irrefutable evidence. Subsequently, I contacted Christine. My message was straightforward. "Hello, Christine. I understand this may be difficult to accept, but I have reason to believe that your husband, Eric, is involved with my wife, Laura. Photos have been attached. I regret to be the bearer of this news." She replied an hour later. It was just one sentence. "Thank you for sharing that with me." The ball was in motion, and I had relinquished any control over its final destination. Yet I possessed one final move to make. I wished for Laura to witness the consequences of her betrayal, to truly sense the burden of her decisions. I extended an invitation for lunch with her. "Let's have a date," I suggested, mustering a smile. "Only the 2 of us. It's been quite some time since we last did that." She appeared to be relieved, almost enthusiastic. Maybe she interpreted my newfound focus as a signal. I had no inkling whatsoever. Unbeknownst to her, this was merely the tranquility preceding the upheaval. The day of the luncheon had finally come. I arranged the table with great care. A pristine white tablecloth, our most elegant silverware, and 2 glasses of exquisite wine. At first glance, it appeared to be a gesture aimed at reviving love. In truth, it was a performance, and the focal point wasn't a bouquet, but a manila envelope brimming with every incriminating detail Frank had compiled. Laura entered, a smile gracing her lips, her cheeks rosy from what she claimed was a lunch date. She froze in place at the sight of the table. Her gaze flicked between the envelope and me. "What is this?" she inquired, her voice trembling. I chose not to respond. I simply motioned for her to take a seat. With a heavy heart, she complied, her smile now merely a faint echo of its former brightness. I pushed the envelope gently over the table's surface. "Unlock it," I insisted. She paused for a moment, then acquiesced. Her jaw clenched as she went through the photos and printed text messages. "I can explain," she stammered, though her voice was devoid of certainty. "Elucidate." I reclined in my chair, my tone steady yet incisive. "Could you clarify what you mean? That you've been deceiving me for months? That you've been covertly involved with a man who is already committed to someone else? It feels as though our marriage has been treated as if it can be easily discarded." Her eyes brimmed with tears. "It's not what you think," she murmured. "So how does it feel, Laura?" I insisted, my voice escalating. "From my perspective, it seems you've been enjoying the best of both worlds." She collapsed, weeping, uttering meaningless apologies. I allowed her to weep, to linger in the chaos she had fashioned. As she finally raised her gaze to meet mine, her cheeks glistening with tears, I unleashed the next revelation. I mentioned that I had a conversation with Christine. Her eyes grew large with terror. "Excuse me, what did you say?" "She possesses all the knowledge, much like I do. You have shattered not just one, but two families, Laura." "Well done." Suddenly, a knock echoed through the room, breaking the silence. Laura's head snapped to the side, her face reflecting a blend of terror and bewilderment. I stood and opened it to unveil Christine. She entered, her expression serene yet her eyes aflame with fury. And behind her, Eric. Laura's complexion turned ashen. "What is this all about?" she murmured softly. "This," I declared, "is the end of the chapter." The ensuing clash was quite brutal. Christine released a torrent of years' worth of frustration upon Eric, who remained frozen, stuttering like a bewildered fool. Laura attempted to step in, but Christine faced her with the fierce intensity of a lioness. "Do not even think about trying to rationalize this," she hissed. "You're self-centered, duplicitous." The terms she employed are not suitable for genteel conversation. Eric finally attempted to justify his actions, rambling on about a sense of being undervalued in his domestic life. I interrupted him. "Underappreciated." I chuckled with a hint of bitterness. "You have two wonderful children and a spouse who would go to great lengths for you. Is this truly how you show your gratitude to her?" By the conclusion, the emotions of all involved were thoroughly worn thin. Laura and Eric entered, appearing as mere shadows of their former selves. Christine and I shared a glance, a wordless recognition that we had both come out more resilient. The consequences were immediate. That evening, Laura gathered her belongings and left her home behind. The very next day, I initiated the divorce process. Christine followed suit. Eric found himself out of work after Christine provided their employer with copies of the evidence. Laura's standing plummeted as news of the affair circulated among our friends and family. They were solely responsible for their predicament. For me, I won't act as if it was simple. There were nights when tears soaked my pillow, and mornings when the thought of rising from bed seemed insurmountable. Yet as time passed, the fury diminished, giving way to a steadfast resolve to reconstruct my existence. I began my journey in therapy, embraced running, and rekindled friendships from the past. A year has passed, and I find myself happier than I have been in a long time. I have come to appreciate my worth, insisting on honesty and respect from those around me. Laura and Eric. Last I heard, their relationship crumbled under the burden of guilt.